Good morning, everybody. This is Chief Paul Rickard of the Town of Mount Hope Police Department, and this is our May edition of Coffee with the Chief. Unfortunately, we are still locked down, and we're doing it from my office. But this month, we've got a real treat. We've got the men's basketball coach at Stony Brook University, Geno, and Coach has got many claims to fame, but one that I know that I looked up is he scored more high school basketball points than LeBron James. So that's
I did not pass very much, Paul. My dad was a coach also, so I did a lot of shooting.
So anyway, Coach, why don't you introduce yourselves to our audience?
Okay, Coach Geno Ford. I'm the basketball coach at Stony Brook, as you said. I'm originally from Ohio. I've been a head coach at the Division I level. This will be my 10th season, I believe, 9th season. I also coached at Shawnee State University, Kent State University, Bradley University, and Muskingum University on my way up. So I've been a head coach at 5 schools. I've got a wife and 2 kids. The oldest one's 25, and he's in coaching at Akron University. He's a graduate assistant. My youngest is a sophomore in high school.
Oh, that's great. I didn't realize you had a son that was 25.
Yeah, I had my first son very young. My wife and I were students in college. We got good grades in college. The family planning class maybe not so high because we jumped the gun and had a kid a little earlier than I think most people would recommend. But it's worked out, and everybody's doing great.
Oh, that's great. So we're living in these crazy times. We're doing different things to try to keep going. And in times like this, it's easy to get discouraged. One of the things that we're dealing with is some mental health issues in the community, trying to keep people from being overwhelmed and reduce their stress as much as possible. What are some of the things you're doing to reduce stress in your life?
Well, the one blessing that for me personally has been just I've had a lot of time to dedicate to attempting. I mean, I hate using the term workout because if you watched what I was doing, it wouldn't qualify as a workout to a lot of people. But I've actually lost 14 pounds. I've been doing exercise every day. I've been watching what I've been eating. And started out, I literally could not run 50 yards. And I got myself to the point where I can get it. I'll go a couple miles, and I mix in a lot of walking in that 2 miles, believe me. But, yeah, so it's been good. And, I think during the season – you just lose track of taking care of yourself because you're so busy and you're up late watching film. So, you had a lot of time to really just kind of work on yourself. And there's a lot of empty hours in the day, I think, as we're all experiencing, even if you're working remotely.
Yeah. So for me, I'm having the opposite. So this is the first time, as we mentioned, in addition to doing men's college basketball at the Division II and III level, junior college level, I do women's lacrosse, Division I, II, and III. So this time of the year, I am usually running from game to game and eating junk at McDonald's or a slice of pizza on the way home or in an airport or running crazy all over the place. So this is the first time in years that I've been home, and so I've had a whole different eating thing going here.
Yeah, that can be good too, though.
Yeah, it's different. It's different. So my life has been different, and in that regard. So. You're a Division I school. You're a coach at a Division I school in a big conference, the America East, and school's closed. You have a hospital on campus. Tournaments are being canceled, the AAU tournaments, the summer tournaments. So how are you dealing with it from the work end of it? How are you getting through that?
Well, the work stuff has been challenging because for us, it's really a 2-part thing. I mean, the most important thing we can ever do is take care of the players that are in our program. Mm-hmm. And they're not here. And so it's very difficult to not only continue to strengthen relationships with the current roster, but you're talking about academic monitoring, workouts to try to get guys better because they're here to be basketball players. That's, they want to be a great at what they do. Mm-hmm. And we can't get them in the weight room. We can't get them on the floor. We can't, talk to them daily. We can't show them film. We're not interacting daily. So all those things have been really challenging. And, then you've got the recruiting piece, which for us, we have a very, very large senior class next year. We have 6 seniors, and we only have 13 roster spots. So a normal year, 3, you might have 4. 6 is a really, really big number. The classes are just imbalanced. So when we have 6, we're going to lose half our team to graduation next spring. So we have to sign 6 2021 grads, whether that be from prep school, high school, junior college, or transferring from another university. And that's really time consuming, but the scary part is usually you can go see kids play in person to evaluate. You can spend time with these kids to make sure that, character wise, they're what you like, you feel good about them as people, and that it's a good fit. And, these things are having to be done on Zoom calls and telephone calls and text messages instead of face-to-face meetings.
Right.
And that's a little alarming, to be honest.
We talk a little bit about recruiting, and one of the things that I find interesting, and this is from doing basketball and also lacrosse and being around high school players, parents are really interested in the whole recruiting thing. And, I was talking to my brother Dan, and we were talking about, I heard the women's lacrosse coach from Maryland speak last year, and she was kind of saying the same things that my dad, who coached, used to say about recruiting. And so it seems to me that recruiting college athletes, student athletes, is the same no matter what the sport is. You're all looking for the same kind of thing. So what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for? Obviously you want the next LeBron James. Putting the skill part aside, what are the characteristics, what are the things that you're looking for that parents everywhere can apply to any of the sports that their children are in?
Well, the thing we've talked about a lot is we want high character guys. That's number one. High character guys who love the game of basketball and who are serious about getting their degree. And as we really break that down with the kids that we're talking to, the high character thing is essential. We can't get players that are McDonald's All-Americans that are just so much better than everyone we're playing that the little things aren't going to matter. So the character piece is enormous. The love the game piece for us is enormous because most of it at our level is player development. Now, we get good players, but oftentimes the guys that go to the mid-major level, for lack of a better term, they're either thin or they're a really good shooter, but they're not a great driver, or maybe they're a great driver, is not a great shooter. Like, there's a reason why their recruitment was at the mid-level and maybe not at a Kentucky or a Duke. And to be able to win championships in our league and to play in the NCAA tournament and compete on that level, you have to have guys that really want to get better and that are going to invest in their, improvement plans and are going to look much different as seniors than they do as freshmen. And then the serious about the degree. If we're not graduating the kids, we don't have a single guy on our team who has below a 3.0 GPA.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and I say this all the time. There are a lot of sports that may be able to claim that. We have 4 guys in our locker room that were non-qualifiers out of high school. So
Wow.
they had to go the junior college route or they had to go to prep school. That's over a third of our team, or show my math skills, 4 out of 13, just under a third of our team.
Yeah, sure.
But just under a third of our team that weren't eligible leaving their high school. So a lot of times they're not in high school systems that are necessarily blue ribbon schools. And that's not to knock them. That's just a fact. They're not going to the elite academic high schools. They're going to public schools that are close to them where they play. And they may not have the background and the basis to compete in the classroom, with the kids that do. And so you've got to get these guys that are very motivated and hungry to learn and to compete in the classroom as well. And, luckily we've been able to do that at a pretty high level. We've won a lot of games. We've graduated all of our guys. We had 1,000 APR, which is how the NCAA grades, basketball programs, all sports, on their retention and their graduation rates. So, we've been pretty strong in those areas.
What you think there's a problem with unrealistic expectations from players and then certainly from their parents? It seems like maybe the parents are worse than the players, but is that something that you deal with out there?
Well, I think you can, and I think there are times when that's the issue. You're always going to have, the era that we live in, right, the social media era where everything looks great on a highlight tape. And from a recruiting standpoint, you can make anything look like it's better. You know, the grass is always greener. It's easier to just cut bait and go over here than it is to stick through some tough times. I think what you find is there aren't as many players who come in as freshmen, don't play as sophomores, play as juniors, start as seniors. That has seemed to have gone by the wayside. Basically, if you're not able to come in and contribute on some level, usually you're getting some external pressure, whether it be a parent, whether it be from yourself or from a high school coach, an AAU coach, a family friend, because, you know, everybody's favorite player is you in those situations. You know, I say it to our guys all the time. You know, your dad's favorite player is you. Your aunt's favorite player is you. They'd like Stony Brook to win, but they really want you to succeed. And the players are forced to understand and sift through that it's not going to be good for them every day all the time. I mean, the absolute, you know, to me, I mean, it's been interesting, this Jordan documentary, but I mean, you know, I grew up in that era where Michael Jordan, everybody's hero. He was certainly mine. You know, he didn't make the varsity as a sophomore. He got cut as a freshman. You know, and he perseveres through all that. And we're talking about, we just want you to persevere. You only played 13 minutes a game and you wanted to start. You know, there's some of that I think the families can make it harder on the kids, but there are examples where, you know, they're getting the right advice too. And that's what you would hope.
I don't think people realize how hard it is, even at a major or low level Division I school. Those games are so tough. I mean, I don't have to tell you what it's like to go to Vermont and try to win at Vermont, which you did this year, which is a great accomplishment, or go to Albany or you know, you have a really who I think is got a great basketball mind is Will Brown, and you got to go up again. I don't know, do the parents and the players realize really how tough it is for you to win at Stony Brook, you know, and how, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing harder than winning. And the best league in the country is the league you're in, because they're all hard. And, you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Will Brown. I think Will Brown is an elite college basketball coach. Obviously, Vermont that you spoke to has had an incredible run. I mean, they've kind of dominated our conference for the last decade in terms of winning the most conference tournament championships and getting in the NCAA. And then you've got UMBC, who you know, wins the tournament once and gets in and pulls an upset over Virginia, 1 seed. So our league is very good. Our league is a lot deeper than people would think. I think the one challenge with our league, there's not a ton of huge media markets. You know, we're in a big media market, obviously, Albany to a degree, Vermont, yes. But, you know, we've also, you know, Maine is Bangor's a smaller town. Vermont or New Hampshire's in a college town, beautiful college, but college town. So there's not, you know, you're not in these enormous media markets, some of your league members. So you don't get as much attention during the conference season. But if you look to what our league has done non-league, you know, all the schools we already mentioned have had huge wins, whether it be us, you know, beating South Carolina fresh off their Final Four, UMBC in the tournament. Vermont beat St. John's last year at St. John. You know, these games aren't abnormal. You expect to see them.
And you went to Texas, right? You had a great couple wins in Texas. I think there was like 3 people in the stands. I could hear, like, you know, I was watching on the video feed, and I could hear people just chit-chatting. And I was like, what? 5 people in the
building? we played in a tournament at Texas Corpus Christi, which is a beautiful place, by the way. But we played down there, and we played North Dakota State, who won the Summit and would have been in the NCAA tournament 2 years in a row, except obviously there was no NCAA tournament this year. But they won their conference 2 straight years. And you're right, there were about 5 people watching the game. And it was 2 really good basketball teams playing, but those events do occur sometimes.
Yeah. So going back to the recruiting a little bit, what is the quickest way for a recruit to get scratched off your list? You know, now you're like, whoop, we're done with this.
I'll be honest. For me, it's being a bad teammate. If we come watch you play and you know, you're a bad body language guy, you're you know, kind of an energy drainer of the group, not interacting well with teammates, and I don't. That's not to say not challenging teammates. I mean, I'd love to find a guy who would jump on a teammate for not blocking out, like something like that. That's
Right,
great.
sure.
But there are ways to do that. And, I think the delivery and things are very important. So, bad teammate is just a no-go for me at all, because it's too long of a year. It's too long. We're the only sport that plays both semesters. We're the only sport that travels 16, 17. I mean, last year alone, we had 18 true road games. 18 times we had to load a plane, load a bus, and take off, be gone overnight, stay in a hotel, eat dinner, get up, game prep. A lot of man hours where you're in a small group. And if you've got, a personality that is a distraction, the team can't succeed. So we're really big on attitude and what kind of teammate you are.
So even if they have the ability, that will be an eliminator. And I think that's important for parents because, we see, one of the toughest things, we have a problem getting referees. And one of those issues is that people don't want to deal with the parents. Do you have issues where you've seen a parent like out of their mind in the crowd and say, hey, I'm not really interested in bringing that kid along?
I have, and it's happened more at AAU than it has at high school games because the reality is for us with recruiting, when you go to see an AAU game, there are games all day. So we can show up in one building and games start at 8 in the morning and they run until 10 o'clock at night. And every team has between 1 and 7 guys that can play Division I. And you're just trying to sift out who fits for you. To go to a high school game, it's really difficult because we're practicing. Our practice ends. We have to hop in a car at 4 o'clock. We're in New York. How far are we getting? And to go see one player play against 9 guys who probably aren't Division I players, and you're trying to evaluate that, it's much more difficult. And that's why the AAU is here to stay. I know some people don't love travel, but the travel sports and travel teams thing, but it's going to be that way. It's just not going to be able to change. And when you really look at it from a coaching standpoint, the negatives there are several because, I can play for your team, Paul, and this weekend. And let's say you really coach me hard because you don't think I'm playing up to my ability, my effort's not very good, whatever, bad attitude that day, and you get on me. Next weekend, I don't have to play for you again. I can go right across the street and play for someone else's team if I want to.
Right.
And so it encourages the hopping around of team to team sometimes. And, and that can be something that when you're 16 years old and you're 15 years old and your parents are yanking you off this team and putting you on that team and everything's everybody else's fault, does that carry with you as you're an athlete at 18, 19? I got to assume it does at some point.
Sure. Right. You have you have a son, 2 sons. One's a little bit older now. The younger one's probably a sophomore, junior in high school. Sophomore. So you deal with teens. You deal with obviously the late teens going to college. How do you balance in this time where we're doing home learning and homeschooling? Like, how do you balance your, the kids' schoolwork, your sanity? How do you make that all work in these difficult times?
Well, luckily, my wife is very organized. She has handled that. My son.
I'm in the same boat. It's all my wife. I give her the credit.
My son, God love him, the sophomore in high school, he has no interest in school. He's like a lot of us were at that age. I'm sure I was identical. You do what you have to do. You don't really do any extra, and you try to explain to him the value and what's important. And he's doing well. He likes it because he's been on a schedule where he's gotten up in the morning and he's basically been done, by 11 or noon with his schoolwork. Whereas if he was in class, he'd still be there until 2 or 3. But he's not Mr. Academics. I can tell you that. He likes to play golf. He likes to play basketball, and that's his main interest.
Yeah. One of the things that I find interesting, and I see this with my own kids, is players, the kids, they seem to get past a loss much easier than the coach. How do you deal with loss and get past those things?
It's really difficult. I think that's a great observation. The kids are resilient. I think the one thing that's made it a little better, when you have a heartbreaking defeat where you get beat, practice is going to be tomorrow. They oftentimes are fine. The coaches are not fine because we're up watching the film and suffering through it, and the shared suffering of losing, and you're just miserable. That's a real thing. Yeah. I think it can be hard as a coach to get beyond it, but what you have to understand is for us at our level, and this is the one true thing about mid-major college basketball, and I use this in recruiting all the time. You can go look at the computer rankings, and the Mid-American Conference, which I played in and coached in, was ranked the 8th or best conference in the country last year out of 32. Mm-hmm. Well, they have not had an at-large bid since I was a junior in college. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you can tell by the hairline, it wasn't last year. Exactly. We're talking over 25 years since they've had 2 bids. So to me, when kids are talking level, if you can get recruited to play in the Atlantic 10, that's a multiple bid league. Mm-hmm. Okay. Colonial, CAA, 1 bid. That's all they're getting. They're getting 1 bid. America East, 1 bid. Mm-hmm. MAAC, 1 bid. So, the levels thing, it's basically, you got, the Power 5 plus the Mountain West, and it used to be the Missouri Valley, but they've had some attrition with members, and now they've become a 1 bid league because they've lost Creighton and Wichita. Yeah. So, you throw the Mountain West Atlantic 10 on top of the Power 5, that's it. That's the multi-bid leagues. Everybody else has 1 chance. So everything we do, as you're talking about getting over losing, the only week that everyone's going to remember is that week in March. And what can we do? So every decision we make, for the most part, is the underlying thing of what's the best thing for us long term. It's not what's the best for us today. Mm-hmm. So you've got to move past it, because a lot of times, the negativity doesn't help the kids, especially the kids these days. I know your dad was super successful coach. You coached forever. My dad coached for 41 years. I can tell you lost. My college coach coached 45 years. You lost. You were miserable because they made you miserable. They ran you. They made it hard.
I remember my dad before really the age of video, and so he would sit down in our family room, and he wouldn't go to sleep. It was like he had video. It was all up in his brain and his mind, and that's how. Then when he got video, I remember he would make us watch it with him, and we'd be like midnight, and we'd be like, and it's like and every little thing he was thinking it through, and so I get it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really changed. The kids are different, and I don't say that they're worse or better or anything. It's just different, and the kids today bounce back quicker. They have more interests. They have more hobbies. They have more things at their disposal.
Now, what would you say is your toughest loss?
Man, as a coach, I coached at Kent State. We lost to Akron, which was our rival and was 5 miles down the street. So, I mean, it was, both are in the same town basically. And we lost in double overtime in the conference championship game. As a coach, that one was tough. But, we made the NIT, and we ended up winning 2 games in the NIT. We beat St. Mary's, beat Fairfield, and then went to Colorado and lost in the waning seconds to go to Madison Square Garden for the Final Four of the NIT. So, that's not the endearing memory of the year, but, man, it was a tough one with so much on the line to get over. And I think the ones – the sting of losses in coaching so far outweigh the highs from winning. Because when you win in coaching, you're just kind of on to the next game, and they feel good for an hour, maybe for a night. By the next day, you're wrapped up in what do we got to do for Saturday's game. And as a player, you can enjoy the wins. You can generally enjoy them, and it's a different vibe as a coach.
Just to shift gears, because I got you, we'll ask a couple about referees. What's the most important characteristic that you're looking for with a referee? You walk out on the court.
2 things to me, the 2 C's, consistency and communication. And that doesn't mean we have to talk all night long, but give me somebody who is approachable and who will just give a direct answer. I really don't like when it's because we have three, obviously officials at our games. I hate it when you're standing right in front of me and there's an obvious foul that is missed or goes against us, and you and I are talking at the next media, and well, hey, that was Steve's call. That's that's Steve's got that area. Like, I mean, come on, if you see it, I know you don't want to upset your buddy by calling something out of your range, but the obvious should be called. So the communication of, I like communication, and then just consistency. Personally, I don't love the new rules. I don't love how the game's being called these days. It's very much everything's geared towards the offense. If you touch someone, it's a foul. If you think about touching someone, it's probably a foul. If you tried to touch someone and missed, it's still a foul. Like, they really call it tight. In all these schools, the kids have never been bigger and stronger. They're in the weight room all the time. So I wish they would let some more physicality back into the game. But as long as we know what you're calling, don't make your first illegal screen call with a minute to go in the game. Right. let's just call what you're calling. And
so it's funny. I worked for Donnie Epley. I know, obviously, Donnie works many of your games. And the other night he had a staff meeting and he brought in Justin Potts, who's the coach at Montclair State. Okay. And he echoed almost exactly what you just said. I mean, it could just same thing, and that's a Division III coach. Division II coaches, I'm sure, are the same. You're the same. One thing that he mentioned, one of his frustrations is he thinks that, and I'm just not quoting him directly, but one of the issues is he thinks that the games on TV in the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big East are called differently than those at the lower level. Do you see that as well? Do you think they're letting them play more physical in the Big Ten or in the Big East than they do because you're in that consortium with them, so you're going to see some of the same refs. Do you think they call it the same, or is there a difference?
You know what? I actually really like when we get those guys. I think the game is a little more physical, but I think they're better play callers. Okay. Ugly is not a foul. I know that's kind of an officiating saying. I'm going to say this, and I mean this, and I don't know how many officials will see this, but I literally have never in my career, the officiating is better today than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. There's more accountability on officials. There's more training on officials. There's more avenues for improvement. You can get video of your own games. I mean, I don't think guys were doing that when I played. Yep. And now the thing that, like Donnie Epley, for example, who officiates at the highest level, and we may get him once every other year. We don't get him a lot, but Donnie is going to let you play. And just because there's body contact, he's not going to just blow his whistle. Now, if I'm hitting your shooting arm, if I'm up underneath you where you're unable to finish a play that you otherwise would have made by my action, he's going to call a foul. But he's not a guy that's going to just bail people out just because I ran into you. It may have been incidental. And I think that's the separator to me as a coach. The guys that make it to the highest level, the really good ones that make it to the highest level, I just think they're better play callers. I'm not into mechanics. I'm not into how you run. I'm not into how you look. I don't care about any of that stuff. I know that, there is some of that in officiating where, they want you to run a certain way and look a certain way, and mechanics, call a travel exactly like this. I don't care if it's ugly mechanics as long as it's the right call. And I think that, it's really not been better. And I do think you see it at the highest level. Really, the best guys do get there for the most part.
Do you think, have you ever walked out on the court and saw the three guys at the, watching the warm-ups and been like, oh my God, we're screwed tonight? I mean, does that ever, just whoever the ref is that get in your head at all?
You know what? I'd love to tell you no. There's one of the guys who does our league, and he's actually, it's funny because we get our ratings, and they're always rated 1 to 5.
Right.
And I've rated the guy a 5 both years that I've been in charge of doing the evaluation. And yet every time we get him, we not only play bad, we lose. And he's not the reason, but he's always there. And so I literally, when I walk out and see him, I just go, oh, you got to be kidding me again tonight with this. And unfortunately, it's kind of been a self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree. and I'd tell you, you could literally, I don't, well, they're probably not public, but if you got a hold of my evaluations, I mean, I can't do any more than give you a 5. They don't let me give you a 6. So I know he's good. But yeah, he and I, for some reason, whenever he's there, something bad happens. It feels like, that thing where you're hanging out with your mother-in-law when I see him.
Right.
It's just, you get a little edgy.
Yeah. And on the reverse, do you ever walk out there and see someone go, wow, I feel this is going to be okay tonight. This is it. Do you have that feeling sometimes?
100%. And I'm going to tell you that we're part of the consortium, and when we walk out and we get 1 or 2 of the guys that, work those Big Ten games, and I've seen them do Big Ten tournaments and NCAA tournament games, and you walk out there and you go, okay, this, we may lose, but they're not going to have anything to do with it. And that's really, I think the scarier thing than those 2 scenarios, though, can be when you go non-league. So I'm going to tell you, and this is a real thing. We play, guarantee games on the road. So last year we went to Virginia, we went to Seton Hall, we went to Providence. This coming year, we're going to Florida, we're going to Kansas, we're going to West Virginia. Well, you don't expect to get a great whistle when you go on the road to those places. But I'm going to tell you, when you walk out and you see the veteran, older officials, you feel good because those guys don't care. They're going to call the game, they're going to call what they see, and they're going home.
Yep.
I do get a little nervous when we go play a non-league game, whether it's one of those or we go play Hofstra, who's not in our conference, or wherever. It doesn't matter. And we walk out and see 3 younger officials, because there is a pay scale with officiating. It's just a bottom line. It's a fact. You work a Big Ten game, you get X dollars. And I don't know that dollar, but I know it's near double what they get working our league. Sure. So if you go out and you get a Big East game and you've never seen Stony Brook before, and I'm working in the Big East, and I do the Big East and the MAAC, and I make a call that is really upsetting to Coach Boeheim at Syracuse, and they lose because a call I make, am I going to lose my Big East games? And I think there's a real feeling with these younger officials that, yes, that is going to happen. And, yes, you are going to be doing more of these MAAC games. And so you're literally just lighting fire to money by, so I think you officiate a little different when you're younger and you're doing those higher leagues where maybe, because it's not like your first year we're going to give you 15 Big East games or 25. You're getting a couple. And God forbid you go in there and make one call and I'm using Syracuse. I could use any team.
Sure, no, I get you.
Now you can tell how old I am. I'm using Big East references at Syracuse.
Yeah, for Syracuse.
But the bottom line is those guys, you don't get a lot of chances. So they've got to make the right calls. And I'm not insinuating that I think they're consciously cheating, but I am insinuating that they're very conscious of, man, oh man, if I screw this up, if the coach at Stony Brook's mad, well, okay. But if the coach at blank school in the Big East is mad, that may cost me games in the Big East. And I think that's a real, that's a feeling that I know exists and that I feel as a coach. When I walk out there, I want to see a lot of gray hair. I want to see a lot of old guys that have done it a bunch of times.
And I think as an official, I think, it's when you work with certain people, there's a calmness to the crew because some people are they've been doing it so long, they've been around so long, and you feel that, and I think that permeates the whole. Now you're not a big technical foul. I don't know if have you gotten a technical foul this year?
I did not get one this year. No, I have had. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I think I had one at Bradley in 4 years, and I had one at Kent in 3 years. I generally operate under the premise that the guys are trying to get the calls right. Now I voice displeasure and I'll get on them, but I usually do it when they're over closer to me in a conversational standpoint. And I'm going to tell you what cured me of that. So when I was in college, I worked basketball camps. That was my summer job. So from Monday to Friday, you would do instructional camps, where you're doing drills and all this kind of stuff. Well, there's only one kind of camp that exists on the weekend, and it's team camp. And there's only one job they're hiring, and it's officials. Yeah. So when I was in college, I officiated. And I still can remember the level of utter hatred I had for a JV coach at a school in Cleveland, Ohio. And the more he complained, Paul, though, I mean, I'm telling you, I literally couldn't stop myself from every out of bounds. Like, if they were wearing white, it was red ball every time it went out of bounds. And the
That's
more he
funny.
complained and the more stuff he said, the more I was, I mean, but you know, you're human. How much of that can you take? So
I don't
you know,
think people
I try not
realize
to lose
how
my mind.
I don't think people realize how hard officiating is. You get done, and I'm not even doing it at the Division One. I'm talking about a Division 3 game. Scranton versus Catholic, and using those two as an example. It's an intense. You got two coaches that are veterans, and Scranton coach has been there forever. He's been in the NCAA, and it's just a tough thing. And then you have a couple plays, and you're playing them over in your mind on the ride home. You get home, like you said, you download the tape, and you're just like, oh boy, I hope I got it right. It's tough.
There's so I.
Hey, coach, I lost you there for a minute.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's on our end. We're having problems with our internet here for some reason, and I think it's because everyone's on the internet in our neighborhood where we're at. We're doing it. So, just real quick, just a couple things. A lot of people have a lot more time on their hands. Some people read, some people watch movies. Have you done any reading? And if you have, what books or what movies have you been watching?
Yeah, I've actually dove into a couple of these shows. I mean, New Era, right? Netflix. I mean, I've gone through the Blacklist. I've been watching those. I'd never even heard of it, but that's been interesting. So I tell you how far out of touch I am with pop culture. I love The Sopranos, so I went back and watched The Sopranos. I watched all of them all the way through. That's the third time I've done that, so I don't know that really counts. I could start reciting the lines probably. And then book-wise, I need to do a better job doing more reading. The most recent one I'm on is Random Walk Down Wall Street, because I've never read a book on finance, so I was doing that. But I haven't really read a good a sports book in a while.
So on kind of along the same lines, if there's one place in the world that you could visit, non-COVID, money's not an option, and let's say with your wife or your family, not with your team, where would that be and why?
I'll tell you, I'd go back to Italy. We took our team when I was coaching at Kent to Italy, and what an experience. I mean, my family's not Catholic, but anybody who stands in the Sistine Chapel and looks up at that, you're going to think about converting. And just the Colosseum and the ruins and the food. Every meal I had was better than the last. And we went to Florence, which was my favorite city. We went to Lake Como. We were in Venice and Rome, and I would say getting to retrace that. My family didn't go. I went just with the team. I think I know it's something that they would really like. If I could ditch my wife, I would go to Scotland and play golf.
Okay.
But you said family, so I got her on the trip.
So how's the golf game going? Is it?
I am thrilled you asked. So for anyone who doesn't know, Chief Rickard's brother Dan works with me and is one of the coaches at Stony Brook. And Dan had his 38th birthday yesterday, and so we played golf on his birthday. And let's just say that he did not get a victory for his birthday.
Yeah, he was telling me.
He had a rough day yesterday. And there was nothing I liked more than watching him implode on the front nine. He had a tough day out there. I love Dan. He's done a great job for us. He's a great coach, and I'm glad he's not a better golfer because I like to win. But he's really been an asset.
What about Coach Spallina? Does he golf? Because I can't imagine him on a golf course. He's got to be one of the most intense people I've ever met.
Yeah, I have not played golf with him. It's funny how, and it's really something that you'd like to do a better job of. The coaches, we tend to all be so busy that, when you get a little free time, you spend it with your family. And I'm sure he's the exact same way. I don't really socialize with anyone at Stony Brook other than two of the coaches on our staff that I spent a lot of time with. Dan's my golf partner, and Jaden Eukin, I've worked with him for over a decade, so he and I will go eat or do stuff like that. But I you just kind of get in your own little world with.
It's interesting. It's an interesting time for us that we're in right now, and all these little things mean more, I think. The golfing with your friends, taking maybe a time and I had mentioned to you before we were on, this is a time, where I have not been refereeing this time of the year. So it's a whole different uh, way to experience the world, being home, being home for dinner every night. I mean,
Yep.
I can't tell you the last time I was home for dinner every single night for a month,
Well,
so.
that's true here too, and I can't cook. I'm horrible, so I do very minimal grill. I usually get subbed out. She usually fires me from the grill for poor performance. So
Sure.
she's done a lot of cooking. We've done some carry out. We've tried to do that a couple times a week and do it with local restaurants here in town. Which God bless all those folks trying to keep their businesses afloat. And I think the when you're in the position, you're coaching, right? I mean, it stinks to not have your players. It stinks, but there are people with real suffering. I mean, not only the illness piece of this, but the job loss, wage loss, bills, real life. I mean, we have stress, but certainly nowhere near what a lot of people are going through.
No, I agree with you. Well, I want to thank you for joining me this month. It was great. It was great to talk about sports and recruiting and maybe get our mind off some of this coronavirus stuff. And again, to everybody, I hope at some point in the near future we'll be able to maybe social distance doing this down at Mix again. And I hope to see you soon. If there's anything you need, you can always call here at the police station, 845-386-8886, or you can email me at chief@mounthopepolice.com. Coach, we're going to owe you a mug because we give a mug to our guests, so we'll get that mug sent to you. And everybody, thanks, and we'll see you next month.